I mean, more than anything, it was just wonderful to spend 2 days with Lionel Richie.
Yeah, absolutely.
In his Winnebago, talking about Michael Jackson and all those things. I mean, just because someone is massively successful, it doesn't automatically mean that they're going to be confident in front of a camera. Obviously, the film was a very successful movie. It became a benchmark in movies at that time and still is a benchmark. But also the photography became a benchmark for cinema photography, film posters. I'm great at sort of sussing out a situation and understanding a person and their psyche very, very quickly. I've had people basically losing their minds on some of my shoots, and you have to adapt. You're reacting with the subject at a point where you're about to take the picture, and it can lead you on a different path. So that creative process is vital to the way I work.
Welcome to the Style Moguls podcast. I'm your host, Mariam Sharif. I'll be featuring some founders, some friends, and some fellow creatives. Today, I'm joined by Lorenzo Agius. Over 3 decades of experience in photography, he is an award-winning celebrity and portrait photographer. Welcome, Lorenzo.
Hi, Mariam.
How are you?
Yeah,
nice to
good,
see
thank
you.
Yeah, you too. Lovely to meet you.
So, over 3 decades of experience in photography. I'm so honored because you have photographed the most famous of the famous. You've been featured in Vogue, in Elle, GQ, from Beyonce to Will Smith to Jack Nicholson.
30 years is a long time to gather a few names.
Exactly. So let's take it back to the first time you picked up your camera. When was it, and who did you shoot? Like, who was the first person you photographed?
Well, the first time I picked up a camera was probably when I was at art school.
Oh, right,
and,
okay.
I was studying fine art, so
Yes.
my plan was to actually leave and do a degree in fine art. But I caught the bug for photography, and that really took over. So pushed the fine art degree to one side and then moved to London and started assisting basically professional photographers.
Right.
And over a period of time you kind of learn your trade and your skill through them, and then you break out on your own and you become a photographer.
Yes.
That's when the hard work starts.
Exactly. Do you remember who your first paid photo shoot was?
Yes, I can, and it's really interesting. The first well-paid job I ever did was Lionel Richie. Wow. And it was very, very bizarre. I mean, I used to know the person that was running Motown Records, and Lionel was making his comeback.
Right.
And they said, "Oh, we need a photographer quickly to go on set," because he was filming his video and take a picture for a cover. So, that was my first shoot, and it was pretty well paid, I have to say, for someone just starting out. It was a sort of a great in. I mean, more than anything, it was just wonderful to spend 2 days with Lionel Richie.
Yeah, absolutely.
In his Winnebago, talking about Michael Jackson and all those things. So,
wonderful.
Really
wonderful.
incredible.
And how did you find your niche? Like, how did you know that this is portraits that you want to do?
Well, I started out by, I started out by being a still life photographer and learning about that. That's probably the best way to learn about studio lighting, because, you learn about lighting every situation. So that was sort of my learning process. I couldn't see myself doing that, obviously. Then I went into fashion, and fashion was great. But I sort of felt that my true love was portraiture.
Yes.
So I was at a sort of an interesting time in fashion and editorial work, because they were they were not using so many fashion models. It was the end of the supermodel.
Right. Okay.
So the Christy Turlingtons
Yes.
and Linda Evangelistas were sort of not as popular on the covers of magazines, and then they were
Right.
using celebrities.
Okay.
So
the celebrity culture came around.
Yeah, and it really did. It was a sort of a moment in time where the switch was made, and I was sort of there at the right time. Really.
Yes.
But of course, it wasn't an easy start. You know, it takes a long time to get to do what I'm known for.
Yeah. So who is the last person that you've taken photographs of recently?
Oh, I just did a shoot recently with an American actor called Glenn Powell.
Okay. I'm better with faces, but I can't remember his name. And the audience is probably thinking, why didn't you know him? I was like, oh, it's one of those names, sometimes you can't remember everybody. But
of course.
And was that here in Dubai or
No, that was shot in Los Angeles.
Oh, okay.
So I used to live in LA. I've been going to LA for well over 30 years, back and forth. I always had a home there because I was just doing more and more work there.
Right,
and obviously because of
course.
Hollywood,
yes.
I was constantly there. So I used to split my time between the States, New York, LA, and London.
Right.
Originally. But then, in this profession, when you're working for magazines and film companies and record companies and magazines, you're constantly traveling.
Yeah.
Working in Europe a lot, it would be Paris or France, Germany, Italy, Spain.
Is there anyone that you want to work with that you haven't so far?
Not that.
Is anybody on your list that you've like, I really would like to photograph them?
I used to have lists like that many
in
years
the beginning,
ago.
Yes.
Because your ambition is different and your mindset is different. Yeah. Not really. I mean, I'm sort of more well known for photographing actors and actresses and musicians.
Yes.
But for me, it's really important to step outside of that. So, and I've wanted to do that all along. So we're currently looking at photographing maybe some of the local rulers and, more just a little different.
Yes.
Because of course, I've mastered my ability to photograph people and capture something special. So I'd like to apply that to other people, like artists, and as I said, artists, and rulers and people like that.
Yes. So your breakthrough was really, I was reading about Trainspotting, is when you did the film Trainspotting. That iconic skinhead look, with the skinny skinhead with the cigarette like kind of just poking out, just hanging on the lips.
Yeah.
And that was iconic.
Yeah, I mean, at the time of doing it, we none of us ever thought it would be iconic.
Yes.
It was a really interesting situation because the film company at the time, Polygram, I'd done a few shoots for them.
Right.
So we built up a reputation to the point that they trusted me. So they offered me this job, and it was, unknown actors and an unknown director and a low budget movie. So there was no pressure around the shoot. So they left it up to me to come up with concepts and ideas. And of course, I wasn't used to shooting film posters, so my ideas weren't the obvious kind of path to go down. And it became, obviously the film was a very successful movie. It became a benchmark in movies at that time and still is a benchmark. But also the photography became a benchmark for cinema photography, film posters. So yeah, it was a perfect storm, a lot of great things coming together, great actors, great writer, great director, and a lot of elements that created this amazing film. And thankfully the photography was a big part of it.
So let's take that as an example. What was your kind of creative process throughout that whole, from taking the concept, so we can kind of help our audience also understand what your creative process is? How do you work from your vision to the concept to actually delivering, what we see? Can you walk us through that?
I have to say that was 30 years ago, literally. 30 years ago, I was really just starting out.
Right.
So I hadn't honed my craft.
Okay.
I was still learning it through, and
Yeah.
experimenting a lot. And the process of experiment in a way worked in my favor because it enabled me just to kind of take risks, to push it a bit. And that's what got me to do what I did, and there were many shoots at that time that I just sort of threw caution to the wind. And because I was also given the responsibility, I took that and ran with it. So, Train Spotting was a great example, and it's now referenced in many, many things.
Yes.
And still talked about these days. And as I said, that was 30 years ago. And in the last 30 years, what I've done is just perfect the process. And, I obviously have a great deal more experience and confidence and all of those things. So that all helps. But I never step away from the fact that you still have to be spontaneous, and you still have to throw caution to the wind and just put yourself out there and, take risks.
Yes.
Because that's when you start to discover new things. As long as you're not jeopardizing a situation, you can still have fun with it, even at this point.
So do you see a concept or an idea in your head first, or do you do a bit of research? Where does it come from?
Yeah, I mean, I do. Sometimes I do research. Depends who I'm photographing. I like to do a little bit of research, not too much.
Yes.
I don't always want to know too much about the subject.
Absolutely.
That I'm photographing, because when you get them in front of your camera, the situation is different anyway. It depends if they're in a good mood or they're in a bad mood, or they're happy or they're sad, or they're, so you have to take the moment as it is at that point. But yeah, I do as much preparation as I can. And I do have ideas pre the shoot, and invariably I'm loose enough and spontaneous enough to change direction. And that's when you really start to get special shoots.
Right, yes.
Because you're reacting with the subject at a point where you're about to take the picture, and it can lead you on a different path. So that creative process is vital to the way I work.
Yes.
So I don't like to be too prepared and too set up, because it restricts you. You have to still be able to
be fluid, to move into a different direction.
Yeah. And that's the whole point of portraiture. In a way, you have to take every situation and moment as it comes.
Yes.
I've had people basically losing their minds on some of my shoots, and you have to adapt. So again, now I experience 30 years of experience, or even more years. I mean, because that doesn't include all the years of assisting that I did, but upwards of 40 years of experience has taught me how to handle those situations really well.
So if you had somebody that you had to photograph who was very shy, very camera shy, and how would you deal with a client like that? And how do you bring the best out of someone who is camera shy, is not wanting to be in front of the camera?
Well, most of the people I photograph they're used to being in front of a camera in one way or another, whether they're actors and they're filming.
Right.
But then again, when you're filming, that's a part they're playing. So it's easy to be something else.
Right.
What's harder is to be yourself. And that's the whole point of a portrait, and a true portrait is to capture something special in that person, in the essence of that person. And that takes a little bit of training in a way, and knowledge and experience. And, and what I do is like psychology as well. I'm great at sort of sussing out a situation and understanding a person and their psyche very, very quickly. So again, it just leads me to a place where I can capture really beautiful images and poignant and capture some essence of that person, regardless of who it is.
Yes, it's human behavior.
Yeah, and also, as I said, if someone is shy, and very rarely do I photograph people that are shy, because they're all usually quite successful in a way. People and not most people don't like being photographed. Even
celebrities. And
yeah, there are lots of celebrities that don't like it. Big celebrities. But, you just have to relax them, and then they get into it, and you build a relationship, and it's based on trust. And if you can get to that place, they kind of give themselves to you. And then you can kind of work with that to create a beautiful image.
Yes. So I went to the 1 Billion Summit. I was attending that earlier on this month. And the subject for entrepreneurs and founders and creatives is about visibility, really showing your best self and just being authentic and being out there and just get yourself out there. And so many entrepreneurs are so shy and so reluctant. What advice would you give to those who are in that situation, who have never been in front of the camera and want to take great pictures?
I mean, it's a tricky one. It's I mean, just because someone is massively successful, it doesn't automatically mean that they're going to be confident in front of a camera.
Yes.
Cameras can be quite invasive, as in society. People don't like being photographed because of elements like paparazzi and stuff like that. But and most people, as I said, I don't even like being photographed. So I'm already sensitive to their needs. So I'm sympathetic.
Is it a normal thing? Photographers don't like having their
no,
photos taken?
No, not at all. But but I understand it. I get it.
Yeah.
And my job is not to necessarily give them confidence to be photographed. It's them accepting their vulnerability as well.
Yes.
And then once that happens, and once people feel that they can be real and not put on a show, they start to relax a bit more. And that's when you get the real pictures. Because if it's just a show, then that's easy. I'm part of, I photograph movie stars and pop stars and very public figures. And, they have a persona for the public.
Yes.
But what I want to capture is the persona that their family knows and their friends know. And it's a deeper look into that person's personality.
Yes. We very much become the paparazzi and the celebrity. And I feel that, when a person is doing both things, it's a very different, it's a pressure. But actually, I think that what you've said is right. It's the performance needs to be less. There should be no performance. And I think when you're performing, you have that pressure. And so I always say to my ladies that I'm coaching that you just relax, just be yourself. And I think it takes practice to be in front of the camera.
Yeah. And I think,
any confidence tips for those?
Well, I think people just, feel that they have to be something. And it's like, you don't have to be anything. You just be yourself, but it is about accepting yourself, and that's the hardest part. If you don't accept yourself and you're a public figure and you feel like you need to present yourself in this certain way, I mean, that to a degree can lead to one's downfall. I mean, if you take a very public figure that we all know, a sort of a Marilyn Monroe, she had a very public figure, but in reality, she was a lot softer and more real and sensitive and shy and all of those things. And towards the end of her life, those photo shoots started to appear because it was not controlled by the studios.
Yes.
And she didn't care to be that person anymore. So, you got a more honest insight into her, and people relate to that more, to be honest.
Yes. And and we love to be, relatable to other humans because we don't want to be, that's it. We want a connection. We want to build that connection.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do all the time is create a connection. So I think that what happens is when people look at my pictures, they go, they kind of recognize something that through my lens, they can connect with the subject.
Yes.
And that's the most, for me, that's what makes a portrait a successful shoot.
When you shoot someone, when you're taking a photograph and you see a person, what's the first thing that you're drawn towards?
It depends.
Individually.
It varies from subject to subject.
Yes.
I mean, I try and spend as much time with people pre the shoot, talking and just relaxing.
Yes.
Relaxing them, playing good music, just talking about life, really, or whatever may be of interest. And then that way you're just connecting on a human level. And that's the whole point, you know. And people that are afraid of shoots or intimidated by it, they need to have this in the back of their head that they just need to be honest. Because that is truthfully what everyone wants to connect to. And it's endearing, you know. Absolutely. All of a sudden you're like, I like him or I like her because I feel like they're being honest, you know, and that's very important these days because we live in such a superficial world.
Absolutely, absolutely. And with this era of AI that we have, where do you see, I mean, there's some really amazing pictures that are generated from AI. Where do you see photography and photographers in 5 years?
It depends what you do. I mean, AI is already here in the biggest way. I mean, people say, you talk about the future, but no, it's here. I mean, I'm seeing things that it's incredible. I can't believe what I'm seeing. But when I can only talk for myself, I think that what I try and do is create a personal experience, you know, an authentic personal moment. That isn't something that can be generated. It has to be the real thing. So for me, AI is an amazing tool. It's incredible. It's going to be in every element of our lives, and it already is, and we don't even know about it. But creatively, I still feel that for me, it's about making. It takes time to make a connection. You know, it's not, you can't press a button and it's there, you know. And I think as time goes by, like people, you know, people were getting rid of all their vinyl albums and buying CDs, and now they don't even have CDs. You know, people are going back to buying vinyl. Absolutely. People are going back to shooting film instead of digital. People are going back to things that remind them of their youth, and that's really important. So those authentic experiences will always remain. I believe that regardless of AI.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that personal touch and that connection you cannot get with a robot or anybody else taking that picture. And it is the understanding of human nature. And I don't think so. But who knows what happens in 5 years?
I think it will come. I think it will definitely be there. I mean, I've seen things that are pretty incredible, but I don't live in fear of anything really. I just, it's just part of the process, you know. I mean, 150 years ago, people were riding horses and then steam came along.
That's it. Yeah.
You know,
we all adapt.
Or everyone was, you know, lighting candles and then electricity came along. I mean, it's just roll with roll with it, you know.
And Dubai is such a place that is just fast moving, future forward. Absolutely. I love the energy of this place. It's got great creativity. I want to talk about one of your most famous shoots with Valentino, because I saw it on your Instagram and I was like, we must talk about this because that image was iconic. Let's walk through and you can tell us how the concept came. When did you do that? Because that was just before he passed away, isn't it?
Well, that was actually, that shoot was the last shoot he did, as it was done quite a few years ago, but it was the last shoot. It was done in 2019.
Okay.
And it was the last shoot of him as head of his company,
right?
Because then he sold the company. Yes. So it was his last official shoot, and I went to Rome, to photograph him at his atelier. It was an interesting day. It was very hot, unbearably hot.
Did you get the concept before of what
No, I didn't have any concept.
Oh, so you just had to go and shoot?
No idea. But, you know, I have a good team of people and I had, you know, a lot of equipment. And so we got to the atelier and I saw this amazing, in the entranceway, this incredible statue that he has there. And then I met with him and he showed me around and he introduced me to the women that make, you know, all of his couture gowns, which are incredible. So I spent time with him and I got to understand him a little. And I just had this, I always try and do things that are kind of going to be iconic.
Yes.
You know, that people will look back at and go, wow, that sums him up.
Yes.
So I decided to shoot in the entrance of his building, and we had organised for 6 models for the shoot. And my idea was that we would dress all the girls in different decades of his clothes.
Okay.
So we were lucky enough to get into the archive of his fashion.
Amazing.
And so we dressed the girls up in Valentino red, and I rehearsed the girls around the statue, created an image. In reality, we created the image there and then with the girls, and we picked a spot that he would stand on.
Yes.
And it's a one shot type of picture.
Yes.
It's not, there's no real variety on the actual image itself, because it's the whole picture that sums him up. It's the girls, it's fashion, it's the Roman face, it's his pugs were there. So it captures every element of his persona. Yeah. I also did some other shots inside his studios and things like that. But that was such a successful shot. They ended up using it for a film poster about him, a documentary called The Last Emperor. And that was the film poster. Then when he retired, which was later that year, they had a traveling show around the world and they used it as the poster.
Wonderful.
So it was a shoot for a magazine initially that then got reused because they loved the shoot.
Yes.
Because it did its job. It summed him up. It summed up
It told that story, didn't it? It told
absolutely.
a complete story about him.
And that's what I try and do. It's storytelling.
Storytelling, yes.
You know,
absolutely.
in a very, very subtle way. It's not just a picture of someone who's famous.
You can see that picture. You can just feel the emotion straight away. When I looked at it, I was like, oh, I feel this. It's absolutely amazing. The colors, the striking, the red itself, so bold lips. Yeah, it was great. Really lovely. There's another one that you've done, which I loved as well, which was for Vanity Fair.
Yes, the Cool Britannia cover.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a big shoot. That was back in the mid-90s, about 96, I think. And that was sort of the beginning of my breakthrough, really. I mean, I had done Train Spotting.
Yes.
I started to do more and more work because that was so successful. Vanity Fair called me in New York, and I met with the editor at the time, Graydon Carter, and they talked about doing a British issue because apparently England was the hotspot for the arts.
Right.
So they wanted me to shoot the cover, and I shot the cover with Liam Gallagher and Patsy Kensit. They wanted a Union Jack on the cover, so I had to come up with a concept and an idea for that shot. And I did quite a few shoots inside the magazine as well. That was the beginning of what people call Cool Britannia. That cover was the kickstart to that whole kind of generation, because England was turning out like the 60s, but it was the 90s.
Yes.
Alexander McQueen, Vivienne Westwood,
absolutely.
Great designers, great Damien Hirst, great bands, Oasis, Blur, Suede, all these.
That era.
So it was a whole movement in England that other countries were celebrating. And that cover was the cover that really, and that issue was the issue that summed up that period. Yeah. And again, that kind of then took my career onto another level.
Yes, absolutely.
And then the phone started to ring more constantly.
I love that. I really love that whole concept, because you now see the Union Jack and you think, you refer back to that era, because it wasn't a thing. I think you kind of restarted the Union Jack. I hadn't seen it in the background in anything really.
And that was. I mean, the editor's idea was that he wanted a Union Jack.
Right.
He wanted people to look at that cover and.
Did he give you a brief?
He didn't give me a brief. The brief was simply. I want the Union Jack on the cover. So I
it's
had
your own creativity and what you did with it.
I came up with the idea of having them on a bed, and the Union Jack was the bedspread, and Liam was in bed, and Patsy was on the bed, and it was a sort of, to be honest, it was a nod to Annie Leibovitz's cover of Lennon and Yoko Ono
Yes.
For the cover of Rolling Stone. So it was already in the sort of zeitgeist of people's minds. And people connected straight away to the cover, which is what we wanted to do. So it was a kind of a clever way of reconnecting to people's memories. And of course, because it was John Lennon, it was very easy to sell Liam on the idea because he was familiar with the cover and he loved the Beatles. So,
and how long did it take you to shoot that then?
That was a day's shoot, a very long day's shoot, because it wasn't only, we did 2 covers. Then we in the studio, and then we went on location and we shot as well in a hotel. So, you know, for the inside of the magazine, you have to shoot a lot more material when it's the main cover story.
So Lorenzo, as you have 3 decades of experience and over 3 decades of experience, for the people who are just starting out, for founders and creators, you know, to be online is so important, because if you're not, as a business owner, your business doesn't exist. And many entrepreneurs find it quite difficult to be on camera. And so I think for the next few questions, if we can discuss how to be comfortable in front of the camera, how to get that confidence, and what do you teach? I mean, you work with celebrities, so they're already comfortable, but how do you extract that personality so it's transformed on camera and we really see that real person, not a performance, not a show, but we really want to connect with that person and for the work that they do. So what would you advise, like, you know, what's the first step we need to do when we're in front of the camera?
Well, I mean, you know, it's relax. You know, you know, my job is to make that person relax as much as possible if I can. As I've said before, no one comes naturally prepared for these situations. It's a very unusual situation to be in. I think the most important thing is to, you know, capture that personality or the essence of that person, and you're only going to get that in a moment, in a spontaneous moment. It could be a laugh, you know, it could be a serious expression, and that effectively can sum up that person. But you're never going to get that if the person's too guarded, you know, and they don't relax. And you know what? If they are guarded, maybe that's just their personality. Maybe they're guarded as a person. But I mean, as far as capturing anything, it's important to, you know, for someone starting out, it's important to keep doing what you're doing, keep working, regardless of what artist you are, whether you're a musician or whether you're a dancer, whether you're a painter, whatever, you know, you do as your form of art or creativity. It's just practice makes perfect. You know, it really does. And the more you do, you kind of, you know, painters, they get the gift that a painter has is to have freedom to make mistakes. You know, that's really important, and not be afraid. So again, when I was starting out, I kind of just threw caution to the wind and I just went for it. And they're the shots that really stand out. And I still do that. It's not having the fear, you know, and regardless of what you do in business or the arts, it's just being comfortable with and being okay with making mistakes, and not, you know, not to be afraid of it.
Not to be perfect, right? Because I think people are trying to be perfect on camera.
Well, I mean, look at the greatest artists of all time, the greatest painters of all time. You know, I mean, that's what it's all about. The imperfections. What is perfection? You know, we're quite often I'm looking for imperfection. I'm not looking for
imperfection is beauty for me.
Yeah. So this applies to life in general. You know, we're not born with it, you know, in a perfect life situation. You know, we all come up in different ways, and we all struggle, and we all grow in different ways. And you know, some of the finest actors are incredibly have had traumatic lives, and they can pull on that for their craft. So it's looking at the sort of silver linings in a way, and making the most of the frailties or the insecurities, and just accepting them as part of the human psyche.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm usually the one who's nominated to take pictures at any event. That you take them, and I remember having this like an old phone, and it wasn't the iPhone 17 that I had, but they're like, "No, you take the picture with your 12 Pro." No, and I was like, "Mine's an old phone," and I was like, "No, you take the best pictures." And I just, for me, it's also about capturing somebody and just like that moment or just the angles. And so I have a question for you, one of a fellow entrepreneur. She said, "I can never take a good picture because I just don't know how to pose." And I was like, oh, okay, let me ask that to Lorenzo. So what would you say? Because people say, I'm going to an event or I'm going out somewhere or I just don't know how to pose. Like, what advice would you give to them?
Well, I mean, if it's an event, I mean, you see it all the time on the red carpet, women and men acting in a certain way, and everyone acts the same.
Yeah.
Everyone, all the women tend to put their best foot forward and, shoulders back, chest out, that type of thing.
Yes.
So there are little tricks that one learns when one is in that situation.
Yes.
But there's nothing better than a laugh or, that real moment.
Yeah.
Because that's the best picture in my eyes.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's very hard for me to say, oh, do this, do that, because it differs from person to person.
Yeah. So when we were even sitting down, I was like, this is my good side. I'm taking this chair. And I think it goes back to kind of really exploring yourself and really understanding who you are. I always say that for me as a brand stylist, for me, it's styling is always like a self-awareness exercise. You kind of get to know who you are through your clothing, and clothing and confidence are very related, but you do, I think there's that self-awareness that you have to have. That
I think that's very important, and it all goes back to accepting yourself.
Yes.
All the things like fashion, clothes don't make the person, it's the person. It's not
the person that makes the dress.
Yeah, I mean, it's it shouldn't be important. Clothes shouldn't be important. It's, people aren't, I mean, nowadays people are interested in what you wear, and it's all about that in fashion magazines.
Yes.
Oh, so-and-so's wearing this designer or that designer. Doesn't really mean anything to me. It's not what I'm interested in.
Yes.
I don't really care what people wear as long as they're happy with what they're wearing. I don't judge
they're
people.
Comfortable.
Yeah, I don't judge people on that. I mean, some people know how to dress. Some people don't know how to dress very well. Some people have lots of money and some people don't.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that they're going to be better dressed. They might have more expensive clothes on, but it doesn't. Beyond that, it doesn't mean anything. And again, as a portrait photographer, I will take any situation and make it work.
Yes.
It's not about what you're wearing.
Yeah, I have this rule. I was like, are you wearing the clothes or the clothes wearing you? Because you should wear the clothes, not the clothes wearing you. Because you want to see the person first, not the clothes walking in.
And
but that's my catwalk and red carpet rule for sure.
And and fashion is a show. Fashion, and if you indulge in that world, then you do think about everything you wear and how it looks, and there's nothing wrong with that. And it's wonderful. And some people are effortlessly stylish, even if they're just wearing shorts and a t-shirt. I mean, Armani, for instance, he only ever wore black, grey and white.
That's right.
Yeah. And most of the time he wore t-shirts and jeans. The man had so much style and elegance.
Absolutely.
And so there you go.
Yeah, you don't have to accessorize to the nines or anything.
It's just confidence.
Confidence.
Yeah.
What's your biggest tip for confidence? How do you promote confidence on camera? What is that confidence tip that you can give us?
Oh God, that's the hardest question. How do I promote confidence?
What does confidence mean to you?
Confidence is really just accepting yourself, and being okay with everything. It's, we live in, as I said, we live in quite a superficial world, and there's a kind of a need, and I see it all the time with social media, of people to be superficial and present themselves in a certain way because they think that's how the world should see them, as being a success. But then the flip side of that is that I also see on social media people that are they don't care. They just themselves. That to me is a bit more interesting.
Yeah. For me, I prefer to see the person first. It's the person inside for me, and it's always nice to have a signature. You bring your personality out in your clothes, and that's nice to have a signature. But the person itself, the person is that makes everything. So I wanted to ask you regarding pictures. I love black and white pictures. For me, there's a mood, or there's something just special about black and white photography. And I saw an image of yours that you shot with you did Jack Nicholson, and his expressions. He's a character in itself, but he was. I mean, those pictures were amazing. Such like his laugh and his smile, but just the character. I just thought that was such a wonderful shoot. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, that was done a good few years ago. That was it's shot in Los Angeles at the Beverly Hills Hotel. Yeah, we had a shoot, very interesting. I was given half an hour with him, but it ended up being 5 hours. It turned into a 5-hour shoot because he loved the shoot. He loved where it was going. He loved working with me. And, you know, Jack is Jack, you know, he's what you see is what you get, you know. I mean, he is the same pretty much in most of his movies.
Right.
He's you know,
kind of quirky.
He's a bit of a scoundrel, you know, he's a cheeky chap. He's very lovable. He's confident. He's funny. He's just exciting. He's incredibly intelligent. He's an artist. He paints. So all of these elements are wonderful when you're working with someone like that.
Right.
And that shoot is probably one of the best shoots out there of him. And that's not me saying that, but that's been accepted in the industry as a reference point.
I absolutely loved it.
Yeah,
I must
and
say,
we
Lorenzo,
managed
it's I think one of my favorites. That was very striking.
I mean, we got him doing things that, you know, that you wouldn't normally ask someone to do at his age. I had him jumping in the air and just we really captured that was amazing expressions, and that was for me, it was an ultimate in shoots. You know, it's, you know, that once you capture that on film, you know, you've scored a goal. It's like it doesn't get any better in life. And with that shoot, definitely that was the case.
Absolutely. Is there a difference between black and white photography? Is there something that, can you share us like a tip? What should we look out for when we're doing black and white photography?
I mean, there are lots of technical tips with black and white, you know, to capture, if you're doing portraits, you know, to capture skin tone, to clean skin tone up, you use a red filter. To get a little bit more skin tone, you use a blue filter or a gray or a green filter. You know, there are ways of controlling what you capture on film, also how you process it, how you print it.
Right.
I mean, black and white obviously is, to me, I grew up, I was a black and white printer. So I knew the technicalities behind it. It is one of my favorite mediums, without a doubt. I mean, it just seems to capture more mood.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
It has a special energy to it, black and white. And certainly I think with my show, in my retrospective show, I would say probably 60% of the work was black and white.
Right. It's my favorite as well, Lawrence. I don't know, there's something about when I do black and white, for my own pictures, I just love it.
Well, it equals everything out. So you don't get glaring colors, you don't get blotchy skin tones, you don't get any of that you might capture in, you know, even if you've got a greasy face, if that in black and white actually looks really strong. And in fact, back in the 20s, they used to put Vaseline on people's faces in Hollywood and the movie stars to make their faces shiny.
Oh, right. Okay.
Then through the film industry, they started to powder them down.
Well, exactly, matte.
So actually, you know, a greasy, shiny face is wonderful in black and white.
I'm going to try that.
But not in colour.
Not in colour, no. That's a really great tip. So everybody's going to be putting Vaseline on their faces.
Exactly. And it's good for the skin, maybe,
and it's
good
for the skin. Thank you so much. And so are you working on anything exciting this year?
Yes, very busy year. They're kind of overwhelmingly busy. We've got at least six retrospective shows in Europe this year, in galleries and museums. and I've got 2 art exhibitions. So this year I've got 8 shows.
Wonderful.
Which is it's a lot of organization and a lot of travel, but it's exciting because I've come to that point in my career where I'm able to do this,
Yes,
and people are willing to look at it.
You have work in Victorian Albert Museum and National Portrait Gallery.
Victoria and Albert's Train Spotting, because it's a cultural kind of piece, and those pictures, and the National Portrait Gallery. I think I've got about 7 or 8 images in the National Portrait Gallery, and going back over the years. So it's sort of the Spice Girls, Kate Winslet, Ralph Fiennes, Tandy Newton. I can't. I mean, literally, I cannot remember who's in the space.
Right. Okay.
I've got other pictures in other collections and national galleries as well in other countries.
Right.
And that's a great kind of honor, and that's my legacy, really.
Yeah. Wonderful. Where can people find you?
Well, they can find me on social media on Instagram, and my website. It's just basically, if you put my name into Google search, it all comes up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hard to hide it.
That was wonderful.
Hide away.
Thank you for such a great conversation. Yeah. And is there a last message that you'd like to leave everybody?
A last message? Just believe in yourselves and your ability to be great. And everyone can do it. It's just effort and work and resilience, and that's what makes success.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Lorenzo. Thank you.
Thank you.